think
No, I-
good for them. Thank you. Yeah, well, I think it's
Are we 6 feet?
sometimes ready to.
Oh,
I like this idea. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Flatness, if you could do the roll call for us this evening, please.
All right. Karen Flatness here. Joanne Maloney.
Here.
Rich Mueller.
Here.
Travis Rauch.
here.
Neil Schleich.
Here.
Dan Schmidt.
Here.
Rick Schultz.
Here. Thank you. We have an agenda in front of us this evening. Dr. Carlson, are there any additions or corrections?
No.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Schleich, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rauch.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We are still not having our teaching and learning feature. Someday we hope to be back to that, but we're not quite there yet. This evening we have a public request to speak by Miss Karina Beauvais. Ms. Beauvais?
Good evening and thank you. I'm here tonight because I would like to request a review of the board policy on student eligibility and the penalties or consequences outlined by NRHEG schools. I would like to request a change to be in alignment and match the Minnesota State High School League guidelines, being a first offense of a 2-week suspension, a second offense being 3 weeks, and a third offense of 4-week eligibility loss. I'm not sure when this last was reviewed, but I think now is a great time to revisit. Kids join sports and leagues for a variety of reasons, because they love the game, to spend time with their friends, to stay in shape and build strength, or to avoid a poor home life. It becomes part of their identity. Kids earning the eligibility penalty for a Minnesota State High School League violation should serve the penalty that is outlined by the state. They already would have the potential to possibly lose out on scholarships, rankings, letters. They already face the shame of riding the bench as it stands for 4 games for a first offense in front of their peers, their teachers, their coaches, their family, and their community. There is now more than ever more pressure on these kids to fit in thanks to social media, to possibly do things that they wouldn't have considered before, and they see Snapchats and pictures of their friends out at parties doing things that they maybe shouldn't be doing, but there is nonetheless more pressure for them to partake in such events. Now add COVID into the mix with the potential to not complete a full season of any sport. Kids already missed out on spring sports and summer leagues this past year. With distance and hybrid learning, our kids are struggling socially. There are increases in depression, suicide rates, mental health issues in general are all on the rise. I feel that the stronger penalties that NRHEG has posed on their students is no longer in the best interest of our students at this time or moving forward. Again, I would ask for consideration to revisit this policy and make changes that aren't so much more punitive to our students than they are to students in other local districts. I would also request that if the change would be made, that it would be at all levels, meaning not just starting at level 1, but to start with the current season moving forward at level 1, 2, and 3. And I don't know that this has any purview for the board, but it has come to my attention that we also offer clay target shooting to our students, but that doesn't fall within the Minnesota State High School sponsored sports. So they are penalized in this sport much like they are in any other sport. So it's a double penalty for those students that are in sports and in clay target shooting. So they would, if they were serving 4 weeks, they would be out of a fall sport for 4 weeks and track. To me, that's a double penalty that I think either should be included so that it should count, or if it doesn't count because of the Minnesota State High School League because they're not a sponsored sport, then it shouldn't be counted at all until such time that they are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we will refer that to our administration, and just to refresh everybody's memory on that, we do have a policy committee within the district assigned to review policies. So sometime when that policy committee meets, due to the recommendation of the administration, that can be a subject for the policy committee to review at that time. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. I'm not going to really, I'm just going to mention one thing that, as far as a board candidate forum, working with our Teachers Association, we're looking at Thursday, October 8th. And so I mentioned, I didn't put the date in the report that time, but that's the date we're looking at. Otherwise, we have the principal reports as well, and I think we're just going to actually there's some nice pictures under the secondary report, so we're going to just share those. And might have Mr. Bunn, I'll kind of scroll through. Mr. Bunn, go ahead.
All right. Well, we don't need to really see too much of that, but that was the video that I had sent out regarding the handbook, and we all took a flight and reviewed the handbook, so that was fun. There's Mr. Domeyer and Mr. Strina, made you famous, threat level corona. If you scroll down a little more, we have some cross-country results. We had a hybrid video that we had sent out that the staff all worked together to create, and the link is there. That was our first couple days of school, and we repeated them 2 days in a row. We don't need to see that guy.
We have mentioned this before. Let's congratulate Mr. Bunn on his recognition.
So the construction is continuing. You can see the pictures that are up on the screen right now are in the greenhouse, and that's one of the electricians trying to get everything wired for that. It's coming along nicely. You can see the inside of the new shop, and that also is coming along. Those welding booths actually have even more structure to them, and the smoke eaters and whatnot are starting to be up on top, and so that is coming along just great.
Okay. I think, is that it, Mr. Bunn?
I think that was it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Other questions from the reports?
All right, thank you, Dr. Carlson. Do any board members have comments for this evening?
Mr. Chair, this is Rich. I got two things. One, I'm going to toss out at Mr. Bunn. I was asked if there's going to be any homecoming events this year, if that's been slide up to time to time.
Well, being as we just kind of found out that we're having a season in the fall, we will be discussing that. So a lot of it, short answer is, don't know yet what that's going to look like. Obviously, some of the things, if if and when we do, are not going to necessarily be the same as we've always been able to do. But there was some discussion of it today.
Okay, my second thing, just to want to throw it up to the board, I would like to kind of see the board get out in public together, maybe do a couple of parades in the local area. That's something people would like to do, but it's just a thought, just so the public can see us all together.
All right, any other board member comments? All right, some of next month's scheduled events for the board meeting, the World's Best Workforce. The public presentation is scheduled for October 21st, and that will be, okay, that's different, excuse me, these dates don't
Well,
match
you're
here.
right.
I apologize.
No.
I believe
It's the
those are
it's
for.
the 19th.
That's, okay,
Yep, thank
for
you.
the 19th, so we will have that at our next regular scheduled board meeting.
It is tentative right now.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that will continue to be here in the secondary building until further notice. So, with that, we will move into the consent agenda items, and if Dr. Carlson would introduce that, please.
Yes, thank you. You have the minutes from the regular board meeting on August 17th, also from the special August 31 meeting. You have board bills in the amount of $2,745,626.33. We have donations totaling the amount of $11,614, including the prep installation of the Volta spinner from our PTO for $1,442.50. Also from the PTO in the amount of $9,171.50 playground cement. L&D Ag, a $500 donation for ag mechanics tools for students. And a $500 donation from Minnesota Valley Federal in a COVID donation. You have, as part of the consent agenda, a purchase service agreement. This is an annual agreement with the South Central Service Co-op for vision, audiology, and orientation mobility services for this school year. Under workforce, you have employment. We're adding a couple paraprofessionals. We have Diane Etlin, secondary paraprofessional. We have Mary Ann Schlake, elementary paraprofessional. NRHEG, community education paraprofessional. And then we also are adding a part-time grad assistant to assist our school psychologists this year. We, in the past, go together with other school districts to employ a school psychologist. Our collaborative has not been successful in hiring a school psychologist, so for this year, you already approved last month for a school psychologist who was a professor at Minnesota State Mankato, who's also on sabbatical this year, is helping a couple of the school districts out, part-time. So this person, Maddie Portal, is going to assist in especially evaluations and helping that school psychologist work through some of those requirements. You also have a renewal agreement for Ms. Sandy Tollefson in our health office assistant. This is, I believe, her third year at this, and so we've recently developed a little bit of a new wage schedule in this area, and so that's included in your packet. We're sorry to see Erin Credico, a speech-language pathologist. She's in her second year with us, and so she has an opportunity that she's going to move on to here in a couple weeks. You have a series of coaching contract with Mr. Odstad for cross country. Again, when this was put together and as of tonight, that was the most immediate to get that in place as far as for the fall. You also, something new this year, we feel that it's been important to go ahead and reflect and acknowledge all our staff who are involved with different activities that are noted on the Schedule D of the negotiated master agreement. And so, a long list there, and it's all right, I'm going to bypass the names, but we want to, again, acknowledge that. So that is something new that we are doing this year. Under policies, last month you approved a list of first readings of policies, and tonight then those move to second reading. And in the past, we have then placed those under the consent agenda. And then finally, under enrollment options, we have 2 students from other districts attending our district, residing in other districts attending our district, and then 7 resident students choosing to open enroll and attend elsewhere. Just noting 6 of those are online. I believe I've covered what's included in the consent agenda. If you have questions on any of these items, or if you wish to consider any of those separately, you simply request to have that pulled out. Otherwise, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schleich to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Miller.
Aye.
Travis Rouse.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Moving into the reports, we are happy to have Josh Cooper with us tonight. Dr. Carlson.
Yes. Mr. Cooper, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Yes, we can. I tell you, we have the agenda up on our monitor and screen, so we do not have your picture up there to see. So, but we have you on audio. I think the plan was, Josh, that I am going to go ahead and bring up the documents as you want, but just to share with everybody, we just thought it was good timing to provide where things are at. We're coming down in many ways to the finishing touches, and thought it would be appropriate, a good time to have Knutson Construction provide us an update, including a little bit of a budget update as well. So Mr. Cooper is able to join us tonight. So how would you like to start?
I'll start by just saying thank you for having me tonight. I really, as I mentioned to Dale last week, I wanted to be there in person, but we had something pop up over the weekend, and we're at home for precautionary reasons. But at any rate, I think kind of the last time we met and spoke was late February, actually, when we came to you for approval on a contract award on the bid. So obviously a lot has changed in both the world and in your school. So I'm here to give you a quick summary on what was achieved here over the summer and show some progress for us and then touch on where we're tracking on the cost. So just schedule-wise, we started excavating here last April and actually poured that first foundation on the addition on April 24th. So, quick burn, but
we were able to actually get in on the interior demolition too and remodel because the school is kind of closing for the rest of the year, and we got a good jump. And over the course of the summer, we had many challenges. You know, with labor shortages, material delays, you know, we had store productivities. But we ultimately pushed through all that, and we ran a little longer than we thought on the interior build out of the remodel, but we're very happy to report that, you know, we did not have any injuries over the summer or get into a situation where we had to actually shut down and not allow us to finish. So, you know, we opened up right as school was starting on the interior work, and we've got only about 2 weeks left on the additions. So originally we were tracking kind of a November turnover on the egg shop, and it's tracking quite a bit ahead of schedule. So big picture, that's about $8.5 million worth of construction in 4 months in the middle of a pandemic. So I think our crews had some challenges, but they did get it done. Dale, if you want, we could go through the photos, or we could hit the summary. Awesome, either one's fine. So I'm not, you know, some people have been inside the building and walked the space, but we'll kind of give you some shots of what was accomplished over the summer. I wish I had taken some before and afters, but this, what you're looking at here is the middle school science labs or science rooms. On the other side of the room, the next shots here are coming into the fax labs. So it's quite a room there. It's almost a commercial kitchen, if you will. So I think a lot of good learning activities are going to happen in that space. Next shop is actually, we tried to grab a shop of kind of the biology, chemistry area of the high school. This is actually in between the two rooms, prep lab. The chemistry and biology rooms are on both sides of it. Those are finished space. You know, these aren't very exciting, but if you remember your old restrooms, this is quite the upgrade with tile work that's coming on. Spaces. There's a shot of the new paint booth in the wood shop area. And Mr. Bunn kind of gave you a sneak peek earlier, but this is the new addition, the shop addition, NRHEG and Industrial Tech. So painting's finishing up, the welding hoods are going in and wrapping up, and we should be close to cleaning up and getting out of that space here in a couple of weeks. The outside of the building, the brick and landscaping, and the greenhouse. So I think that's, any questions on the book or any of the schedule that we went through here before we get into the cost? Okay. So what's up on the screen here is a little bit what was presented last February once we awarded the contract. So that upper portion is everything that we contracted out, with the exception of that canopy line, and we'll touch on that here shortly. Below that's comfortable is the changes portion, cost changes at the elementary and the secondary. I will say line items are kind of a worst case scenario. We're still kind of finishing up, wrapping up some of those last bit of changes. So those may tick down a little bit as we close finalize and close the job out. And the next line items there are kind of remaining soft costs. Some of those adjusted up or down based on how our construction progressed. So you can see kind of at the end of the day, we're basically in a spot right under budget with the help of that LPFM dollars that were put into it. And jumping back up to that canopy, that is kind of an estimated amount. We expect that to drop a little bit more, but that will be the new east canopy that will go over at the elementary school. Any
Questions, board members?
This is Joanne. What is the status of the update in the elementary building?
Could you be more specific? What updates?
Well, the office, for one.
Is that
I think that so, just updates, really haven't, I probably talked most, Mr. Cooper about the secondary building.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Those all finished about the same time. So we got some punch list items to pick up, but for the most part, we're wrapped up on there. The HVAC is all complete and operating.
You don't by chance have a picture of the proposed canopy or anything for that Allendale site, or?
If you give me a couple minutes, I could probably grab it. Unless Dale's got it handier.
Yeah, I don't know how,
That's fine
I don't know how I'll be able to put that up, I guess.
and that might be tough for you too, Josh, but can you just, how about describing it? I mean, from a comparison standpoint to what we currently have there?
Yep. So what will happen is it'll basically kind of get stripped down to just the steel components. We'll refinish the steel, repaint it, and kind of get it cleaned all back up, and then it'll have a new translucent cover over the top of it with new light fixtures and everything like that. So it'll really, I would call it, open it up and give it some daylight when the sun's shining out, and brighten up at night with new fixtures once those are installed.
I think it's going to, we decided on more of a flat surface, but it will be sloped, kind of in one direction, just a slight slope. It's not going to be significant, but as opposed to just a perfectly flat roof. So, and the idea all along too is trying to, with that being the new entrance, not only kind of fix it up nice as you come in, but also with that translucent top, hopefully the lighting can assist to lighten up that entry area a little bit as well.
Can you assure us that the water issues have been corrected in Allendale? One being the issues that we had in the windows coming into the office earlier in the construction project, I believe, and then obviously we recently had a failure there that created a problem, but out of everyone's control. But more importantly, I guess, the long-term water issues there as far as that east office area.
The office area, yeah.
Yes. So to answer the first part of the question, in the office area, yeah, we did have some, as we were kind of working our way through there, some unfortunate rain come through and we weren't quite ready to button up. We did correct all that, get everything cleaned up. And then we got finished what we think is what we know about this water cleaned out, the water intrusion.
And if you could, on that same note, back to the secondary building, or more specifically, the middle school wing. I recall that being kind of a challenging issue there to get the drainage inside that basement, I guess I'll call it. As far as you're concerned, those issues have been addressed properly, and we'll fix our issues there.
We did do a bunch of regrading out there, and we've got that sloped around correctly. As far as we know, it has been corrected. I think the real test is springtime. I think that's when you have most of your problems. So feel like we've got it under control.
Did that get hooked to the city sewer now then, as far as the runoff? Did that get hooked to the city sewer along the street side then too?
It did, yes.
So that'll be a good deal.
Yeah, I don't know. We had to replace some concrete over there and do some drain tile and everything. I probably can't really tell because I think we got it all dotted out there,
Yeah.
replaced.
I think there's some tiling down that goes in, and then above it, there's that, also that
Surface.
pipe.
Catch page.
That pipe that was going to be open, but we're able to work through it and have it covered.
Any other questions for Josh this evening? And I'd like to personally thank Knutson for working with us along with ISG in the project. It's great to see the finished product come close here. And Dr. Carlson and I were talking not too long ago about the thing that we're really missing is the fact that we can't at this time invite the public in to see the great improvements that they supported us on, but we hope for a day that we can and show the public exactly where their dollars were spent. And I hope they're as impressed as I am with the improvement to both facilities here. And the air quality, I know stopping in on some of those miserable summer days, you could definitely tell where those systems were up and running. So I'm hopeful that this is a project that will keep us updated for years to come, and will truly see the benefit to the students over the course of time with this. So thank you to everyone involved with this, and back out to the staff. Some of these things were challenging. They were kept out of their rooms longer than they wanted to be, and the adjustments and the teamwork that went into putting this together and making it successful is greatly appreciated from the board and the administration. So thank you to all involved, and congratulations on quite an improvement.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. We're very proud to be a part of this one. It was a challenging, and I told Dale this before. If you recall, this was going to be a 2-summer deal. So we had our work cut out for us from the get-go, and we're happy that it turned out really great. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll let you go, Mr. Cooper. Thanks much.
Thank you.
All right, moving into finance, we have the maximum levy authority for 2020 payable 2021. Dr. Carlson, please.
Well, and I'm going to ask Ms. Christopherson just to make some brief comments. Tonight, the ultimate goal is to approve. We're recommending to give us maximum authority as we head to December. Carla.
Yeah, so in your board packets, you've got the 40-page levy that, it gets long, but it's full of just a ton of information, but you're welcome to sit in. We sit in on a webinar every fall going over this thing. This is the point where tonight you just approve maximum. We do that every year for as long as I can remember. This year's extremely important that you do that because we have a vote in November, which would change the levy, obviously. We always do maximum anyway because what happens is the state hurries up and gets this report out so you guys can do this, and then they start double checking their work, and inevitably there's little tweaks and programming changes that happen, and somebody is saying that they think there's some work that needs to be done on some of these formulas. But in the meantime, we're just tonight gonna vote in maximum. I visited the other day with our former financial advisor, Michael Hart, and he had gone through and checked some numbers, thought it looked good. So if you flip to page 31, what it's doing right now is proposing a 6% increase total. There's a couple of things that happened on our end, but the overwhelming majority had to do with the local optional revenue formulas and how the state looks at that. Had to do with referendum market values, just a ton of things outside of our control. We did go ahead and levy for some dollars. We haven't done it in years for, it's called reemployment. So if we had to lay off a person, or if a person resigned from our district, goes somewhere else, works somewhere, gets laid off, the unemployment, goes back 5 quarters. So we've had some expenses these last few years. So what you do is you just project what you think our expenses might be. And then in a couple of years, they look back and say, did they have those expenses? And if we did, great. If we didn't, they just adjust the levy from there. So we're never really going to levy for something we don't end up having. That's just kind of how it works. That and our career tech program, we were able to still levy a little bit more. So we got a number of programs going. We have some staff that's been approved. So we levy a little bit for the obvious ones, shop and fax, but we also can get some dollars in the business area. So we're doing that. But again, most of that levy increase in the general fund is tied to those formulas and referendum market values that assessors set. And then if you look closely, community service and debt service both went down. So again, that's where we are tonight. We're looking for that maximum. If we get that after the meeting, the clerk signs off on that. So, any questions?
Otherwise, again, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the maximum levy authority for 2020 payable 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the maximum levy authority for 2020 payable 2021.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Ralph to approve the maximum levy authority for 2020 payable 2021. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rauch.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We need to set the truth in taxation hearing date. Dr. Carlson, please.
Yeah, so we historically have done it on the third Monday of December, just prior to the regular meeting. So that would put us on Monday, December 21 at 6 p.m. It seems like the half hour has worked okay in the past to present that information. So unless there's questions, that would be looking to take that action as far as setting the hearing date for Monday, December 21, 2020 at 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schmidt, seconded by Mr. Schlake to approve the truth in taxation hearing date. I apologize, I missed those. Monday, December 21st at 6 p.m. Any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rauch.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Looking at substitute rates for the 2021 school year, please, Dr. Carlson.
Yes, we are advancing to the board this evening. I believe it might have been 2 years since we've made adjustments. I've worked closely with payroll manager, Ms. Schuler, and others to come up with a system somewhat consistent of establishing those. And many of them are based on whether that entry level rate and so on. So it's time, you see the list there, that this would include certainly our employee groups, as well as some of our individual positions. And again, this is for short-term substituting, okay? Short-term substituting. So with that, be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Dr. Carlson, did we have to talk to some of our groups, like the teachers and the parents, talk to representatives and see how they feel about these numbers?
We spent time looking at comparables, and then I can't say that it applies to all of these, but we did try to apply a certain percentage to the entry. But we did not have broad discussion with the memberships.
I'll make a motion to on these substitute rates for 2020 and 2021.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Schlage, seconded by Mr. Schmidt to approve the substitute rates for 2021 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Okay, Karen Flatness, I'm abstaining from the
Oh,
vote.
excuse me,
That's okay. Nope, I got it. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rouse,
Aye.
Neil Schleich,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. We have a couple policies that we have before us this evening for their first reading. Dr. Carlson, please.
Thank you. These are two policies, and I just brought up the first one, 522. The timing of this is due to the recent federal regulations dealing with Title IX. And so we have spent the last month or two learning more about it and the different things that we have to have in place. One of the first things is we need to make sure we have our correct board policies in place. And so what you have in front of you is the sex non-discrimination policy, Title IX grievance procedure and process. These have kind of developed in the past month. We did not have these ready to go for when the policy committee last met. This has all taken place between then and now. We have had the school board association really is the group that modified this policy. And again, that has happened since mid-August. And we've also had our own legal review as well. In this, it includes the procedure, the investigation or grievance procedure that's to be followed. And that is a lot of that is what is new. So again, we feel that there is urgency to this. In fact, we also are asking tonight that, just so you know, that while this is a first reading, working with our legal counsel, we are advised to go ahead and put this in place immediately. You can do that in an emergency type situation if you go to board policy 208. It provides the board to do that in an emergency situation, and our legal counsel is advising us that this needs to be in place. So what would happen tonight, based on a first reading, we would immediately put this in place on the website and so on. And if you do that and you don't do anything else, you need to come back within the next year to do the readings again, first and second. Or what we plan to do is in October, go ahead right away and have you do a second reading. The advice was that we received is we shouldn't wait an additional month to put this in place. And so that's going to be my recommendation, asking for the board's approval tonight under a first reading. That will allow us, we'll make a note in the minutes that we are putting in place board policy 208 to do that. And so we'll reflect that in the minutes. But we'll come back and ask you to do a second reading here in October And then that way we can avoid, it's our understanding anyway, we can avoid having to redo this within the calendar year. So this is a time-sensitive issue, and that is one reason why we did not convene the policy committee back for this. Similar is related to the other policy, 413. And harassment and violence, and again, there's pieces of this that tie into our procedures, and also giving that person, student, staff, employee, the direction that they need and the rights that they have. So I wasn't planning to go through in detail the policies, but I certainly can if that would be helpful. I do want you to know, though, that both the School Board Association and your legal counsel has gone through it, and that's what's represented here this evening.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy 522 and policy 413 as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Mueller to approve the first reading of policy 522 and policy 413 as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rauch.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to 2020-21 school board goals. Dr. Carlson, please.
I worked with Mr. Schultz on just putting together a draft. As you may remember, back in July or early August, the plan was to bring this to the August school board meeting, and then it was determined it would be better if it was put on tonight's meeting. Annually, the board has approved work goals that it sets to give itself direction, some guidance for the school year on identifying priorities, and that would be the intent here. There was an attempt to use back to the self-evaluation earlier this summer, and some of the board's reflection from last year, putting this together into some of these draft goals. On the document that's in your packet, we actually left on there the goals from last year, but we did do a strikeout, but at least they're there that if you want to just make note of those. So we have a couple areas under the strategic plan focus areas, and the first one is under finance. And you can see that as far as some possible draft goals, that and we need, this time is for you as a board to work on these, to revise, to adjust. The first one is trying to address the upcoming November 3rd referendum and the work that needs to be done, and that's coming up shortly. In fact, the ballot, that process has already started actually. But trying to reflect the work that's going into that, and then following right up with goal 2, that no matter what, this year we need to be working on that budget for 21-22. And of course, the direction and the impact on that budget, November 3rd, will play a significant part on that. So in the end, though, the board will be looking to build that budget for 21-22. We make a note there that depending on the outcome of November 3rd, we felt it was noteworthy to, in a potential goal, to say if it was not successful in November, there likely would be the additional work of looking at a process on how we go about reductions. And so if there was interest in, looking at that as far as a process, and obviously that budget setting process would involve identifying actual reductions. So one of the things that we always feel writing a goal in the SMART format, we're looking at ways to measure. And can you, in the end, can you say to yourself, here was our goal, and we met it, and how do we know? And so that's a little challenging on some of these, and so we, might need some further work. Moving on to facilities, a lot had to do with the ongoing project last year. And we just, we thought that, we still have the shop to finish and the whole thing to bring actual closure to. So while we hope it's more like a November 1 date, we did put December 1, that finishing everything, utilizing and staying within budget. You had a good update to that tonight. Also, what we had as a goal 3 last year was one that, looking ahead, doing more work on developing that long-range facility plan, which we have had a good start with when you look at that ISG facility assessment. Under student achievement, we thought this was an important area because of beginning with what's happening this school year and the uniqueness of the learning plans that have been implemented, whether that's in-person, hybrid, or distance learning. And the board has had a critical role to play, ultimately back, in August of approving the plans, all 3 of them, but also monitoring and evaluating as we go through the school year. So this is more than just determining what model we might be in at any given time, but just thought that it would be noteworthy to put down that this is a priority for the board this year. We don't know about a measure, and so we aren't able to offer how would we look to measure the achievement of this and the success of this. We also, on goal 2, we do bring up the learning model issue, and that is something that, in fact, the board will talk later tonight about update on learning models and so on. So we also felt this was important to note under student achievement, the board's work that's likely to continue throughout the entire year, as far as we know today. That's where we are. Mr. Schultz, did you want to add anything?
No, again, some of those are a little bit difficult to measure. We talked about that, but we did think that these were some high priority areas that we're currently in. And again, back to the learning models, I think toward the end of the year we will know how successful we've been on adjusting these challenging times. But yeah, we felt it was important enough to list it on the focus areas of our board goals. So feel free to add any comments. This is the 7 members objective, so you sure can have input and adjustments to it, or we can go ahead and move forward with approving it, but feel free to make this yours.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school board goals as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Ms. Flatness to approve the 2020-21 school board goals as presented. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rout.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Looking at our 2020-21 staffing plan revision, Dr. Carlson, please.
I will go through this a little bit here. It's not unusual that after we have started the school year, as adjustments have been made, that we come back to the board and we present a revised staffing plan, and that reflects kind of where we're at today. If you go back to May, there's been a lot that has happened since even May, as far as the planning, as far as assessing what are the unique needs we need to meet the teaching and learning and other services that we provide in the school district. So I'll just go through a couple of the main areas. We talked about teacher overloads. And as you may recall from the staffing plan, we, in the regular instructional classroom, we have some really good guidance on what drives the need to have a teacher have a 6th instructional class. And so there are some areas that are a little bit more challenging to determine that, but we sit down and we work with that teacher or that person to come to an agreement on how we would measure the increased need. We have speech and language pathologists. We currently have 2 full-time positions in our school district. With the recent resignation that you approved tonight, that will leave us right now with 2 open positions. We are in the process of contracting some services out to some agencies to help fill the void. And so this was in the plan. I thought that we would just leave it. It's been in place now since we started the school year. It will be in place for the next couple of weeks. We will prorate this amount with that individual. I don't know how this looks beyond that. In fact, I didn't want to get too far out in front. This really doesn't, I'm not prepared to share a budget impact tonight because we have several things in play with speech. And I just said we currently have 2 positions vacant. So while we don't have those costs going on as a school district right now, especially after the 2nd week in October, we do know that there will be costs for any of those contracted services. So this is, I'm unable to provide you the net budget impact on this particular overload need. In art, working with Mr. Bunn and also our school counselor, we do feel in order to meet the instruction needs right now in the area of art and also to fulfill everything else that in our middle school art program that we needed for this semester. I believe hopefully it'll be this semester only. That's the plan. So when you see a 0.1 FTE with a teacher, what that transfers into is that's a 6th class for 1 semester. And so if it was for a full year, we would be putting 2 tenths down, thinking a full position is a 1.0 position. Moving on, the paraprofessionals, this is something that has developed over the last month when we have looked at what's our needs for this school year because of the required child care that school districts must provide if you are in a hybrid or distance learning model. And so in order to put us in a better position staff-wise and supervision-wise, we decided we felt it was necessary to move forward in adding 3 additional paraprofessional positions to make sure that that's covered. I think right now, what you did already this evening, not sure about the order, but you did approve 2 of those. So I think we will have put in place formally 2 of those 3 positions at this time. We continue to assess the needs, but tonight, if you approve this staffing plan, we will continue to assess, and if needed, we would move forward with a 3rd position. Also, right now, we have not secured this position yet. We have posted, and we are in the process of interviewing. This is an additional health office assistant, and because of the increased needs in our health offices, we are trying to do everything we can to make sure we have the people there necessary to address not only the ongoing bumps and bruises and scrapes, but the increased needs that we need to be prepared for because of COVID. Whether it's our quarantine rooms for a period of time until the person can go home, we just feel we need to do this. And so we have already started the process, but your approval tonight of this staffing plan would be including the health office assistant position for up to 35 hours per week. Some of this you had on the original staffing plan as I scroll through, but I've made the adjustments now, trying to reflect what I've reviewed with you in the budget adjustments. Again, the speech and language is a tough thing to really address right now. So I did my best at trying to reflect those other things that have happened. What do we know? I made note that last spring you adopted a staffing plan that was saving about $67,000. And again, taking out where we're at with speech and language, right now these additional expenses tonight, I'm estimating around $39,000 or $40,000. So you'll see that in the end it has changed since last spring, and that's obvious because of the additional. We continue to look at some alternative funding sources for some of this, perhaps some of the ESSER money and so on, the CARES Act money, but we're still looking into that to see what other funding sources that we can access for some of these positions. So that's the revisions that are proposed tonight, and be happy to try to address further questions that you have on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 staffing plan revision as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Ms. Maloney to approve the 2021 staffing plan revision as presented. Just flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rout.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Looking at a 2021 school year calendar revision, Dr. Carlson, please.
This may not be the last time this comes back to the board this year, but for right now, we wanted to reflect what's happened so far. And so I'm just going to go kind of beginning in August. We've tried to note the additions as far as highlighting those, and then those things that would be deleted or changed, we put a strike through those. I do know that, again, with the principals, we have some other staff here that if we've missed anything, please, those people can add to it. But I think we have it for now. In August, just trying to reflect what actually happened. The 31st was a staff development day for all. September, you may, first of all, the secondary open house did not happen. And so that is going to be reflected later when I get to that. We also, if you recall, we also worked out with our teacher group to work some optional days in lieu of another date in November. And so we did the best we could to note that opportunity for our teachers on the calendar on September 4th through 7th in lieu of November 13th. In October, that's where the secondary open house date is planned to, it's kind of a trade-off for that night. Planning on setting up some virtual conferences at this point, and so we would be running those over 2 nights. And so we added the 12th to that, and you can just see the notes that were added to help explain that. November 13th is that optional workday. And then also, we just made a note for the elementary conferences. Those are planned to be held virtually if either in hybrid or distance learning at that time. And then the same thing, we went as far as February, but we haven't gone totally past December at this point to do much of anything, but we did note the February elementary at this point as far as virtual. And that would be likely for the secondary as well. Some of those need to be finalized, and we're not going to worry about that until we get farther along. So I think, again, number of days haven't changed for students or staff, but just trying to note as we go along the changes to the calendar. Any questions? Otherwise, be looking for a motion to approve the calendar as revised.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school year calendar revision as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Mr. Schlake, seconded by Mr. Mueller to approve the 2021 school year calendar revision as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Oops, can't make it through with that without it.
All right, Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rouse.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Flatness. Moving on to the 2021 school year learning plan revision. Dr. Carlson, please.
As our principals are making their way up here, again, tonight, this is just to review what we're looking for board's consideration of approving some revisions. This is specific to the hybrid learning model, the learning plan. And I will let Mr. Anderson and Mr. Bunn get us started and introduce it further. We also know that we have a number of people from our teacher planning group in attendance, either in person or remotely tonight. So, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Bunn.
I'll introduce Mark Dolmeyer's here, representing the secondary planning committee.
And virtually, we have Dina Summer, Wendy Schultz, Kathy Meyer, and Sarah Erke. And this is the team that's been meeting since June. And recently, we've been meeting again, looking at the hybrid model and what is it that we can do to enhance student learning for that and for our students. And so we put together a proposal that would find, with the hybrid model, Wednesdays being a distance learning day. And those members of the committee are going to share what that day would look like. At least the elementary people will talk about what that looks like for an elementary student. So elementary staff, if you want to go ahead and begin.
I guess I can go first. I think like anything else in any job that you have, or whether you're a teacher or coach, you are constantly reviewing and looking back at what you're doing. And as a teaching staff, we've noticed that it's been difficult to find time to meet with our distance learners. Throughout the day, teachers are planning and preparing lessons for one group that's at school, as well as planning and preparing lessons for kids that are at home, and then of course the distance learners. I believe we have probably about 45 kids in the elementary way who are distance learners, and it's very difficult to find time throughout the day to meet virtually with those distance learners. If we were able to have a distance learning day, it would be a great opportunity for teachers to meet virtually with distance learners. We'd also have the opportunity as well to meet as a whole class. Right now, obviously, Group A kids see each other at school, Group B kids see each other. The distance learners, not so much, so it'd be a wonderful opportunity to have a class Google Meet, which would be beneficial. So, the other element elementary teachers want to add on to that?
I know, my name's Dina Summer, and I know with the teachers, I teach special ed, and seeing, the teachers cram so much into a day, to be able to get curriculum that they need to. And, Wednesdays would allow them to be able to meet with kids in small groups virtually, and to address the students that have different needs, whether it be accelerated learning or the kids that are struggling. You know, just focusing on each student's individual needs.
I know right now, I'm the Beta 1 teacher this year, and we have Mrs. Williams, who's the reading interventionist. We have Mrs. Groth, who's the math interventionist, and me are covering each day from 1 to 3 for our elementary teachers, so they can work on distance learning. And it's just not enough time. And so then what happens is then we're pulled away from working with those kids. And we know that kids have had 6 months off. They more than ever need interventions, and we're pulled away from it. And it's just hard to meet all the kids' needs.
I will say one thing that Wendy said earlier when we talked about this. If we could go back in time to when we made the decision and we were talking about the hybrid model, and I remember this, we talked about, you know, do we do 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, or every other day, you know, and we batted around that idea for so long, and the decision was made, nope, we want to have them come every day because we didn't want to miss that one, you know, we thought 1 day losing that a week would be pretty hard. But then now if we could go back, we did not realize how many distance learners there would be and how stressed the elementary teachers are because they feel like they're not meeting the needs of the distance learners right now because they don't have time to connect with them. We thought maybe it would work like the high school and that we could do more Google Meets and they could join in, but that reality hit. And while these first 2 weeks have been very stressful for many of the teachers, especially the ones that have more distance learners. So I know a lot of districts have already done this, and they have that time for classroom teachers and other staff members to connect with their distance learners. So that's what we're asking for.
This is Neil. I just wondering, I think there were some parents maybe in this committee too. I had some phone calls on this issue of what trying to get these elementary kids to do if they're working and who's going to watch them on the distance learning as far as, and I don't know how the daycare works on a 1 day a week or that. I got numerous phone calls and I totally understand because that's what I said all the time, all along is this has just made a heck of a lot of workload for everybody and especially the educators trying to do all 3 models. But what is how do you get elementary kid or where do they go to do the distance learning when the parents are working, I guess is my question. I had numerous calls on this, I guess. I mean, it's one thing if they're set up for it, but I guess it's kind of, I totally understand where you guys are coming from.
So, are you talking about the AU students, the ones that are every other day already? How they're going to do the distance learning, Neil? Is that what you're asking, or are you asking about the current distance learners?
No, one that would be going to distance learning on the Wednesdays.
So you have your AP students who have been there on, so they're still going to continue, they're still coming, it would switch, like, the A group would come Monday and Thursday, and the B group would come Tuesday and Friday. So technically, they're getting an extra day of distance learning in probably 2 times a month, really, because it's every other Wednesday. So the plan is that Wednesday, especially the first Wednesday we get, I know those teachers are going to be on Google Meets with those kids that they have not connected with, the total distant learners. And there's ideas of doing maybe like Wendy mentioned, a whole class at 9 o'clock where teachers do something like called number corners with their whole class, and then they can see everyone. We'll get better at it as we go, but I know the biggest concern for most of the classroom teachers are they have not had a chance to meet face to face with their distance learners yet through Google Meet, because there's just not enough time in the day when they're teaching all day.
And right now with our distance learners, we have packets that go home weekly to families with some of our younger kids that, for the distance learning, we have the iPads that some grade levels are using for the distance learning as well.
Mr. Slake, you mentioned childcare, and maybe I'll just add, right now with the AB schedule, those students that are on distance learning on their day, some of those, if they're a qualifying family, they have access to our child care. That's why those paraprofessionals have been added. I believe under this change on that Wednesday, now what will happen is we will make sure that we can accommodate what I guess would be both the A and the B student on that day. If that makes sense?
Yeah. And I get it, and I kind of referred them to talk to principals because to get a better handle on, because I put a lot of faith in the committee. I do not know how these days go as well. So that's what I did get a number of questions on that, and I totally think this is a better system as far as, like, I can see that on the distance learning, never having a teacher in front of their face otherwise.
I actually... Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just gonna say too, I think it's important that, everybody knows that it isn't just specifically for the distance learners right now. We're gonna be able to meet individually, small groups. Interventionists will be able to, Sarah, Jess Willings, Jean Grove, their title people. They'll be able to meet one-on-one, not only just with our 45 or however many distance learners we have, but it will also be, the kids who are struggling as well as, which is great. We can also help her enrich the kids that need enrichment.
And our paras will also be available to be working with kids over Google Meets and stuff as well.
So I actually struggle with the concept based off of our objective through this whole process has been to get us the youngest learners in person as much as we can, and as we work through this and see this happening in the elementary setting, to me, backing away from that personal educational experience is kind of a 180, and I understand that we have to be flexible, but the first things that come to mind are our kindergarten. If I could be updated on our kindergarten and Bridges programs, we were working toward getting them there every day. Where are we in that process of getting those there every day?
Bridges is there every day, and all kindergartners will be together beginning the 28th.
Okay. And I guess with that in mind, to me, this just seems like we're walking away from that objective of getting the youngest learners. And again, some of these people have committed to distance learning 5 days a week. That's accurate? Is that number staying consistent with that 12% that I think we were updated with?
We have had a few students who have come back into the hybrid model.
Okay, from distance learning, so no more have gone distance than where we started. And I guess that's, our objective as a school district here is to get students back as quickly as we can and back to the normal learning model. And I'm confused that we're potentially going away from that instead of perhaps encouraging it. And I guess my question would be, if we can, if numbers allow and we are looking for an all in-person elementary setting, as soon as numbers allow us to do that, I feel like we're taking a step in the wrong direction, or am I wrong on that?
My question would be is so we were going to start the school year, initially we were going to start at all full-time elementary, hybrid high school. So let's say down the road at some point in time, we end up at that again. So if I'm understanding everyone right here, it's a problem with the distance learners if they don't feel like they think they could get better attention with Wednesday off, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
I think the idea is that we'll be able to connect with them on a regular basis more frequently with this model.
So with this model, so what happens if we go to full-time elementary then? Are we still going to want a day off to be with the distance
This is
learners?
hybrid only.
My question is, so out of the distant learning students, there's some teachers that record while they're doing maybe their reading. How many of those students are actually on while those teachers are teaching that reading lesson for the day? Is my question. Are we getting any? Or, that's my concern. If they're not on, then you're taking away from those kids in school that are there.
It varies. We have some classrooms where the virtual attendance is very good, and we have others where it's a significant struggle. And so, we would have the opportunity on that Wednesday to enlist the help from paraprofessionals, from our interventionists, and from that classroom teacher.
Right, but then are they gonna join on Wednesday, or that's where my concern is. Are we we're trying to get to our distance learners, but are those distance learners actually going to be present for those meets that day if they're not there on the off hybrid day? Because the distance learners are AB, correct? They're also labeled so when they need to be there. So that's my concern. Are they actually going to be there to get those interventions and get that help that they need?
You have to understand what it's like when you're in the classroom, if you're trying to teach kids that are there and deal with them personally and look at them in the face, and then if you have kids that are on a Google Meet, so we are also dealing with the technology of that to get it set up and make sure the child has their microphone on and the parent was able to connect. And then you're trying to teach to a screen and then teach to the whole class and keep their attention. And that is one thing that is stressing teachers out very much. We really didn't know how we were going to do this. Some teachers are doing it different ways. And then there are the students who, when they're on the Google, that's not human interaction with them. They're not seeing the teacher's face right in the screen. There's more listening. There's so many different ways of doing it. Other teachers are recording their lessons and then putting them out there for the student to watch. We're trying to meet the needs of the learners depending on what their needs are, because some can't always join in during that Google Meet time or that live classroom. And so it's all those kinds of issues that we're trying to deal with. And it's stressing elementary teachers out a lot.
I can totally get that, and I'm back, after some of this discussion, some of these students wanted to be their kids in school as much as possible. And if we did go to in-person even, just based off numbers for whatever it gets to be, and we still have, say, 10% that want to do distance learning, and I know that we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but that's still the whole intent, was trying to get as many kids, and I think some will be hesitant to send their kids until there's a vaccine, even if the numbers present that we're in person. So then we'll be trying to do in person in this distance learning too. I can only imagine the stress of a teacher. I mean, and yet trying to juggle 3 different learning models for those that know their kids are struggling. They know they're behind as a first grader or a third grader, and they know that in person, and they want to send their kids, that this is setting them back, because that's kind of the way it was put to me from one. So after some of this discussion, that was, I don't have the answer, but it's just.
I think I want to, Travis, your question about if the elementary gets back to all in person, like how Wednesdays, there is a big difference in the elementary, at least from my understanding, and the ladies will correct me if I'm wrong, but right now they're really dealing with 3 completely different groups. They have the kids sitting in front of them, the kids that are the opposite group, and the kids that are full-time distance learners. And they're having to kind of prepare for 3 different groups. Because their kids, unlike in this building, where our kids are with us all day long, their kids are not in various situations. So if you go back to the all in person, now you drop that from 3 to 2 groups you're preparing for. So you got the A and B together in the classroom, you're preparing for them, and you're preparing for the distance learners separately. Well, the 3 to 2, my math tells me, is a lot easier to deal with. And so I think, you know, the distance learning day, the Wednesdays would go away then when we're in person. So it would, you know, they would have more opportunities, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Anderson, but there would still be opportunities with some of your interventionists to kind of support them, and so they have chances to touch base with those distance learners.
So is the secondary, do you feel like is in the same position as what the elementary teachers are describing then, or is it a little different?
We're swimming in different waters over here, but we could approach this in a very different way in this building. We could continue to hold our classes just as we're doing right now, distance, and we would likely have to have them check into each of their classes for attendance. We'd have to do that for attendance purposes. But from there, just like it is now, it'd be up to each individual teacher probably. You know, if I'm right in the middle of something, I don't necessarily want to lose momentum on a Wednesday and, you know, not have class other than checking in. On the other hand, when you look at how the Wednesdays work into this quarter, there's some really, you know, convenient right before MEA, right at the end of the quarter Wednesdays, where perhaps we as a staff would look at and say, this is our time for us to find those kids that are slipping, and, you know, maybe to some degree a little motivation for some kids to have their work done, that, you know, you can check in that day and you know, you're caught up, you're good to go. But I think it would look a lot the same as it does right now for us. But it would give us maybe some opportunities.
Chase some kids.
Yeah, I mean, we hope to be in a hybrid too. We want to see our kids get to that stage, but we also understand that, you know, we too have the distance learners, and we're encountering the same issues with technology, whether it's a Chromebook or whatever. That would give us some opportunities here as well.
This is Joanne. Has this plan been presented to the staff at the elementary, and I mean, recognizing that every staff member is going to have his or her own style and different sets of needs in the learners, I'm just wondering what sort of feedback you may have received from other staff members? Is there a good buy-in?
Elementary staff, do you want to respond to that?
Sure, I will. Yes, we have, and I think, you know, when you're on a committee committee, just like you guys are as a school board, which we appreciate you. You're the voice of everybody, the voice of the whole district, and the four of us are the voice of the teachers. And so each of us personally have talked to the other teachers. We've also had 2 or 3 staff meetings about it. And in general consensus, yes, this is, I think for sure what the teachers would like to see.
Thank you, Wendy. What was that, Sarah? I don't know who's
No,
talking.
that was Wendy. I think too, that we all want to do a very good job, and I think we're struggling, especially the classroom teachers are really struggling at doing 100% at teaching the kids who are here, and 100% having, the kids who aren't in school that day, and then we just feel like those distance learners are just not being, their needs aren't being met, and there's just not enough hours in the day, so it's just huge frustration. Feeling like you're not doing your job because we don't have enough time to meet with them.
Do we know of any other school districts other than us that's following this hybrid model where it's every other day? I've tried to look around and see, and it seems like every district that I've looked at is the model that we're presenting, where they go 2 days a week. So if Group A, a lot of schools have it where it's Monday, Tuesday, Group A goes distance learning Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is Group B. We had chatted about that, and we thought that having Group A go Monday, Thursday, so there's not as much time in between. Group B go Tuesday, Friday, so you're never really physically away from school that much. But does anybody know of any other districts that are going every other day like we are?
This is Dave. It's kind of just checking in with some of the secondary principals today in the Gopher Conference. It's at least I can only speak to the secondary level. It's kind of a mixed bag. I believe Maple River is on the same AB schedule as we are right now, and I believe the JWP is also.
Yeah, we want to be, careful on that one. I think collectively there might be some districts, that might be on an AA, BB, AA, BB, without that all distance learning. I would have to say, in response to Wendy's question, looking at the other way, while I don't have the data in front of me, my sense is that more of a common plan is having that full day of distance learning one time a week. But I would say back in July when our teachers in the planning looked at, I think it was Kathy earlier tonight that said this, there was examining that back and forth and what's workable. And I tell you, I was proud of our teachers saying, you know what, we feel this is important. We're going to try this. And so I applaud them for stepping up and doing this, knowing that in all of this, we have to allow ourselves to be flexible and re-examine what we're doing. We've gone into this. No one has a definite playbook on any of this. And so I feel fortunate that how our teachers attacked this right away and looked at a number of possibilities and models. And we've kept saying that, let's give ourselves some time, let's examine this, monitor. We started the year, we were a week and a half in, and did a quick check, and this seemed to be something that came to the surface rather quickly. And so, in general, I feel we need to allow ourselves, as long as we can look at, as much of research, best practices, and so on that we can, but quite honestly right now, there's not a lot of research and best practices out there on this. And so we have to trust all of us as those educators of trying to do what we can to make the best learning opportunities possible for all our students. And so this is something that, will we get this right on this one? You know, we're gonna continue looking at this. And we gotta continue, that's part of continuous improvement. And right now, we're right in the middle of that as we're developing things brand new. And we have to make sure that we're continually stepping back, looking what we're doing. How are we meeting the learning needs, making it workable for our families and our employees? And we're not, you know, and we've said this before, we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to do the best we can. And I'm proud of what we have, the goals that we've set as a school district. And in comparing to our neighbors, we've set some ambitious goals.
I think to address what you said before, Rick, about, you know, getting the kids in the building, that's the biggest reason that when we were making these decisions in July, that's the biggest reason we went to that this every other day thing. We said, we need the kids in the building and we don't want to lose curriculum time. And the recognition has come that you know, the elementary teachers have been doing a superhuman job already, but they just don't have enough time to get all these things ready. So you have to give a little to get a little, and can help balance that out so the kids get the best education, even if they're not in the building on that day. They're going to have time to get some stuff that, however they do it, and I can't even begin to speak to that because my brain functions at a teenager level. But as Wendy said too, you know, we really purposefully put this idea together of Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday instead of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday to get them back in the building quickly. And also, our calendar has a lot of Thursday, Friday combo days off. When you look at that, we have 4 of them between now and the new year. So we can't take one group, a B group, and say, well, you're going to miss 8 potential days in the classroom that your A kids will get. So I think it's important that we get the kids back in the building quickly, don't have more than 3 days out of here, and they need us too. But this is just something that we need to be able to get. It's just like teaching a lesson. If I don't get it right the first hour, I make some adjustments, and the next time I teach it, I don't just throw it out, but I'm going to make some adjustments and try to get it a little bit better the next time I teach it.
But that again is some of my concern. You talk about some of those days off and stuff, and we're already removing them out of that Wednesday. So then Friday is off, and I truly am concerned of how much time we're allowing those students to be out of our facilities for the education. Again, the other question that comes up through this: have we given it a fair chance? We're 2-3 weeks into this. And again, it's not that I'm not sympathetic for the workload on any of the staff here. It is overwhelming. I can agree with you totally here, but are we in the position to make this drastic of an adjustment? And again, we as a district are going to have some very strict obligations for that Wednesday of distance learning. I don't know that our staff is going to look at that as a catch-up day. I mean, that's going to be an overwhelming day doing that distance learning for all. Again, I understand that it might give some flexibilities for specialists to get a hold of certain groups, but I would be disappointed in a week and a half if we've adjusted and all of a sudden the workload is here and it's real, and I don't know that it's going to solve the problem of the overwhelming task that's in front of us. So I'm concerned with this adjustment this early and this quickly, and again, against what we kind of started as a season here, and I'm wondering if we've given it a fair chance.
I don't think I'd look at it as I hope you're not looking at it as like this would be a day off.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a little bit of the sense I'm getting, and it's not. Whether, again, every teacher will be a little different, but whether they're sending stuff home, the ladies had mentioned, you know, they could have their entire class together for once in a Google Meet, and every kid could see every other kid, and they would still be doing some work with them. But it also gives those teachers the time to prepare some material for the days to come, because they would not necessarily have to be in front of their class the entire day as they are now, where they're limited in their time that they can prepare. And they just, you know, again, their ability to touch base with the kids that they don't see all the time that are those full-time distance learners. It's going to be a full day for everybody, and I can only imagine. I think that so many of us still have in our heads what April and May were like, where you could go outside at 10:30 and kids are running up and down the streets, you know, because they're all done. And I again, the ladies will correct me if I'm wrong, but those kids will be busy learning.
I would agree on the height. I just don't know how, back to what Karen's saying, are they following along online if they don't have supervision guidance?
What are they doing the 2 other days they're home right now?
Yeah, I don't know. But
so this is just one more.
But they're not on Google Meets on those 2 days that they're home on the hybrid. So on that Wednesday, I guess is my concern.
It's
so
just
that's
more.
So that's what my concern is are they going to be on there and have some instruction that day, whether it's reading, you know, maybe go back to what they both learned on that. So if it's so Monday and Tuesday for those A and B groups, but then have some enhancement or enrichment, however, and to evolve whatever they're, you know, learning, rather than just, you know, sending some enrichment home from the previous days, which they're kind of doing now, is kind of a follow-up. What they learned is what they bring home on that off day. So that's where I was concerned, is are they going to have some of that teaching, like as you said, with the whole group would be wonderful, you know, because the classmates want to see other classmates and have some more interaction, but are they all going to be there to get that whole class? I guess that's where my concern. I understand where the elementary teachers are coming from. I actually spent a half a day over there, but how is that learning going to take place if some of those kids in distance learning right now aren't using that time when there are having that Google Meet, or are they even doing the homework from the distance learning? So that's my concern. That's nothing against it. There's not the work. I understand the workload has been there. It's the providing that education on that Wednesday.
When are the teachers, the difference is the teachers don't have teaching responsibilities. They don't have kids in their room all day, most of the time, and they have actually some solid time that they can actually face-to-face talk to a child like this. That's the difference. They're not having time to connect with those kids, because a big giant Google Meet will be great too, but they need some time when they do not have students in their room to meet with their distance learners and do the face-to-face instruction. When are they supposed to do that?
And if they have time to connect with them individually, then they have the time to talk to them about joining on for the Google Meet. A lot of times the parents are next to them, so we'll give them that opportunity to encourage them to get on. Whereas right now, they haven't connected with their classroom teacher yet, even.
This is Dan. Can you guys kind of lay out what is, I guess, currently the practice on like the AB days? So if a student is an A student, what they're doing on the B day, as far as, you know, are they getting online, or are they just doing whatever's supposed to be taken home? I guess where I'm going is, I had one parent concerned about if, because they were only doing like an hour, maybe 2 hours worth of work on that off day, and they weren't sure if that was going to be the norm going forward, or if that was just kind of a transition thing.
Keep in mind, it's been only a couple weeks of school, and the teachers are setting classroom procedures, they're going through rules, they're getting to know the kids, so it's not, and they're also doing a lot of the fast testing and individual testing and monitoring of kids to get their baseline, so there's not a lot of academics yet.
Right.
And so honestly, my online students are ahead of my in-class students because they've been able just to work on the assignments. I think that that will get better once we get into the academics.
Because I think teachers have only seen their kids 5 times. So that's why they're not sending a huge amount of homework home, because they hardly have even gotten to know their students. It takes time, and then it takes time to, I think that teachers would like to end up sending devices home, but it takes time to walk through how to get logged in, because I think a lot of teachers would like to be using Seesaw and other, IXL, but it takes time to get those kids comfortable logging in and things. So I think the work will definitely become more rigorous.
Okay.
It's just that it's so early in the year.
Well, and we're not dealing with secondary age students either. I mean, it's younger kids,
So my question is, are we better off to run 2-3 more weeks like we are to get them kids that are in school? I mean, when you talk about 8 days, there's nothing better than a face-to-face to get to know your kid. I mean, you can do it on screen all you want, but I would just soon see it go for another 2 weeks, tough through it, because I know it's miserable. I hear that part loud and clear, and I can only imagine. So I do have the deepest sympathy for what you guys are dealing with, but it's back to trying to have them kids in the front hold, back to what we were trying to do to begin this school year in person for them elementary kids, so they can get that relationship struck with a teacher. And I think a teacher will be in person, they'll have a heck of a lot better idea if they're where they're at academically too, versus 8 days.
When are the teachers supposed to, in the next couple weeks, connect with those distance learners?
Well, my point is they're already ahead. Are we going to promote distance learning?
My students are, because of the technology. But the classroom teachers, I know second grade, they have said they have not connected with their distance learners yet. And they're very stressed about it because they know how important it is. I mean, we're trying to cram in all these academics and trying to cover as much as we can because we know how behind we are and we know our time is limited with them. They've cut everything out that they possibly can, and they're just super laser focused on getting as much done as they can with the students that are there in their room. And then they get done with that, and all of a sudden they turn around and they go, oh, that's right, I was supposed to be planning some things for my distance learners and connecting and doing Google Meets with them and getting to know them. And they have used the words of it's not sustainable. They just cannot keep up at this pace that they're working at. They've been in tears at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the mental health for everybody involved, whether it's a district employee to a student to the parents, it is.
This is an analogy that pains me, but let's compare it to the Vikings game plan the last 2 weeks.
Do we have to?
Well, that's why it's painful. But boy, maybe you should have changed the game plan a little bit sooner. If you wait too long, suddenly you're down by 20 points. And if you wait too long on this and say, well, let's do this for a couple more weeks, well, then it's the fourth quarter and you don't have a chance anymore. And your teachers are starting to burn out and your kids are floating off somewhere that you haven't touched base with. That's why, the quick change is the recognition that we tried something, we looked at it, ooh, okay, the defense is a little tougher than we thought. We're gonna have to change things up and make that move now.
And that could
So
be
we're
the
not
same,
0-2.
maybe for in person too, we could have just went and we're following all these numbers. I mean, it just.
Our game plan as a district is to get these students back into the classroom as quickly and as often as we possibly can is at least my individual game plan. And again, that's where I struggle with backing away from that concept. And I understand the concerns, but that is the game plan, to get these students back into school personally as quickly and as safely as we possibly can.
Can I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
Do you have any other ideas? any other, we have tried we've talked about other ideas like hiring teachers specifically for the distance learners. We've talked about early outs. If you have any other ideas of how we can meet the needs of the distance learners and not add that extra work pressure to our classroom teachers, because they want to do a good job with that. They care so much. They want to do a good job with the distance learners. So if you have any other ideas, I'm all ears.
We've explored if the feeling is better, that we should explore changing up the daily schedule, shortening the day. And that's a model that's out there. And we've chosen not to go there at this point. But that, I can tell you, that is definitely a model that's out there in school districts. They've shortened the day, whether it's like 8:30 to 2 or 1:30, whatever, and on a daily basis, there is some distance learning time to connect. I mean, that. If you're asking, to Kathy's point, there are some things been considered, and at this point, this is what was felt to be most tolerable and to bring forward. We can certainly look at some of those other options as well. The idea here is we're obligated to serve all our students. And especially now in this time, those families that have chosen what's best for their child at this time is to be home full-time distance learning. We're obligated, and we will. We'll serve those students like we're serving students who have who are coming in person. So, so anyway, there are other things that we could look at, but it's
So Mark spoke to the fact, and ladies, if you can still hear me, this is Travis, but if we are, so you're always going to have these distance learners here, at least for, we don't know how long, but if we do go back in session full time, I know Mark sounds like he's pretty comfortable, he'd be fine, but how about you guys in the elementary? Do you feel like you would be okay having kids every day and still be able to handle the distance learners?
Well, I think it helps. Like Mark said, right now, as an elementary, we are planning for kids that are in your classroom and you're giving them 100% attention. Just like, if your child is in our classroom. So you're planning for those guys. Then you're also planning for kids who are at home, and then you're planning for the distance learners. So it definitely would be helpful, if they were in school and it wasn't just an A and a B, and at least everybody is in class, and you still have the distance learners. I think it would be easier than the model that we're doing right now. Sarah and Kathy, Dina, what do you guys think?
I think it would vary with the teacher. Some teachers have more distant learners than others too. And it's hard to predict. I will say, we did not get a chance to say this, the kids have been wonderful in their small groups. They've been wonderful about wearing the mask. We had those concerns. They're being great with them. We are getting to know our students better because they're small classes, the A and B. It's taken some getting used to the scheduling, the A and B. But to ask us what will happen if we have all the students back, I'm hopeful that all students back, maybe we'll get more of those distance learners into them. I don't know, it's hard to know because we can never count on those numbers. The best plan is to get all those distance learners back in school too.
Thank you.
This is Joanne. I think our staff should be applauded for trying to do the every other day model. It's my understanding, based upon digging around on the internet and listening to the news, that most of the a lot of the elementary model is the one day that's just pure distance learning, and 2 days a week for half the students. And instead of saying, oh, they're gonna get a day off, you know it's not a day off. They tried this, it's not working. It's not serving our students. It's stressing out our staff. And our staff is telling us that the best way to move forward and educate our students, for the elementary students, is to try this new model. And I think we should support them.
Wendy, this is Dave again. I never got to finish earlier, but I know Medford and I believe Blooming Prairie are also have similar models as proposed.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question for that was, and maybe I didn't say it correctly, but are there other districts besides us that for the hybrid model are going every other day? I mean, I know Blooming Prairie, even if they are hybrid, they're still all in.
True.
And I'm wondering if we need to consider that as a viable option here. I mean, is that a solution to it? The other thing we haven't considered here is we do have hourly employees that are part of our education process, beginning with bus drivers, food service, paras, all of those things. And again, we're adjusting a schedule. Have we addressed delivery of food products to the students that won't be coming every other day? How will that look?
Yeah, we've identified, there are some things, Mr. Schultz, but right now, the start is with the student learning piece. So there's no question that the reality is we have to address a couple of areas. So.
I guess I'm okay with supporting what the teachers are proposing, because I firmly don't believe we're gonna be in it very long if I have anything to do with it. I think we're gonna be back to school, so I think it's temporary, but that depends on a lot of factors. Of course, we don't know, as you know, we get surprised with a lot of these numbers and whatnot, but I don't feel like Mr. Domeyer and the ladies here online are, I mean, I can tell by the tone of their voice that these are all seasoned teachers. They're not.
Oh, I don't disagree with any of their statements, and that's not the point. It's yeah, I don't think any of us.
The problem is we need the kids back in the building here. That
Right.
would fix the problem.
Right.
Real quick.
But if that again is the game plan, then is an adjustment in the best interest of the district.
Well, we know that we're gonna fluctuate through the whole year.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. For a while I thought maybe not, but depending on who you listen to, I guess.
Right.
But we're gonna have fluctuations, and we're always gonna have the distance learners. I'm convinced that you could have a vaccine on January 1st, and we're gonna have kids that distance learn the entire year. There's just no doubt in my mind. We're gonna fluctuate. We're gonna do this. This is gonna come into play even if pick a date and you can have all the elementary and you're maybe not gonna have all the secondary kids in yet, and then all of a sudden you have some sort of a potential outbreak. You have all kinds of things that come into play. This is gonna be part of our life at different parts of the year. And there's not a one of us, and you guys know this, and you've alluded to that, there's not a one of us that doesn't want what's best for our students. That's first and foremost in our minds. But there is also the what's good for our staff to be able to continue to do the best job that they can to provide for those students, and also to take care of themselves. Because that's absolutely something that we need to be concerned about right now.
You know, if we just take a little step back in time and we go back to March, and we had 8 days to do something that we've never done before. In many ways we were successful, in many ways we didn't do as well as we had hoped. Even with all of the planning that went on all summer long, it's not perfect.
Well, we always said we'd never know until the kids step foot in the building how the plan would work. And you very quickly figure out how that works, whether it's in the hallways or in the classroom or whatever.
Mr. Bunn, are you picturing this as your schedule in the hybrid model also? But we haven't given it a try in the high school or in the secondary as far as whether or not we can successfully do it every other day.
No, but I think if we were in hybrid at the same time as the elementary, you know, in that scenario, there are so many of those kids that the older kids here take care of the younger, they're at home with the younger kids, so if the elementary kids were home on a distance learning day and the secondary was in a hybrid, we'd have to do it the same way because of that factor of taking care of the young ones.
In the high school, are you thinking that maybe for those group of kids that need that extra instruction, would that be all online, or would it be a possible thing where those groups would come and have that hands-on with the teacher, or is that not what you're looking at? It's all distance learning?
I think it's a discussion we need to have.
Sure.
You know, because the elementary is currently in hybrid, they've had many more discussions.
Sure.
You know, we're going to be doing that. You know, and like when we know we're going to come back to hybrid, we'll meet as a staff and we'll talk about some tweaks and some changes and some things like that. And believe me, I know that the other members of the committee and myself that in this building, we get approached on a daily basis about ideas and things, but we'll come together and kind of address that. I know we're meeting on Wednesday as a committee too, but yeah, there's a lot of things, and so we appreciate the input we get from people on, well, how can we use this time, and what might that look like in this building? Again, there's a lot of possibilities because, as you guys talked about, the ability of the secondary kids to be able to get on their devices and handle the technology and do those things gives us a lot of different options than the elementary has.
I suppose in the high school, you'll still, when you get to the hybrid, you're going to have the same difficulties as the elementary of trying to connect with those distant learners who sometimes may not always be on or want to be. That's going to be a challenge in both. You know, from what I said, how are you going to get those that aren't on? Same with you, the secondary too, right? I mean, that's going to be your challenge all the way, is how to reach those kids that you want to help.
Yes, it's the same challenges we have when every kid is in the building.
Sure.
We have that certain group that's difficult to get to, and we try and as Paul Sear used to say, for some you could walk on water, you might not get their attention, but we keep trying, and we keep trying to figure out ways to do that. It is harder here, and we see the technology issues and how that plays in, and the internet issues that some people have, but you know, that's another point of discussion we need to have as a staff, is how do we reach out to these people, and it has to be perhaps picking up a phone a little bit more often, you know, whatever it's going to take. So we don't like to give up.
No, and I think that's where I'm coming from. Not to, I hope I didn't come off wrong for you ladies in the elementary, but that was my concern, you know, for those kids that you're trying to reach now, is to get that one-on-one, and when they're not there. So I didn't mean to offend you or anything, it's just how do you reach them, which we all the teachers struggle. Doesn't matter if it's an odd year like this, or when we did have the old normal years, it was always hard to reach out to those students that you are trying to reach out now, to give that extra assistance to.
And I know somebody talked about the relationship issue and building a relationship with the teacher and student. During distance learning, I have the behavior, ASD, autism, and although it was hard for the students with autism to meet online, we found different ways of talking to them. Whether it have been even sending pictures back and forth or talking on the phone. But with our students that we were able to communicate with through Google Meet were, I mean, it was bringing us into their lives because we were able to make connections from home. And it built big, better relationships between us anyway. And I've even seen with that there, the teacher is able to focus on students in a personal way. So I don't know that this is, in the relationship aspect, I think this has been a positive.
I don't know where it's at in the questions or discussion. I saw that the intention for a recommendation here in a motion would be to consider to approve the revised hybrid learning model proposal as it has been presented tonight. So I just want wherever the questions are at, that would be left to the board for consideration.
This is Rich. I'd like to make a motion that to consider the hybrid model as presented.
I'll second.
Motion has been made by Rich Mueller, seconded by Joanne Maloney to approve the 2021 school year learning plan revision as presented. Ms. Flatness?
Sorry, hang on. Can I have is there time for one question?
Yes, I should have called for more discussion. I thank you for.
You had brought up the point of paras, bus drivers, and the kitchen staff. Do we have something tonight of how that would look like?
Well, paraprofessionals, I'll let the two of you speak to that.
Yeah, they'll be just like they would during the day, and they did this last spring. When the students are present, they're meeting in small groups and individually. That would continue. Our Title I pairs would be meeting with their Title I kids. Our special education paraprofessionals would be meeting with the special education students.
Paras are already online here.
Right.
So the other two groups you mentioned, if the decision was to approve this tonight, we would need to go to work with those groups and see the impact on, we still need to prepare those as far as the distribute the meals. And so we would have to talk with our food services. How does that look? How does that impact now that all our students on one day are going to be on distance learning at the elementary? So, we're living that right now with this building every day. So we'd have to go to work with that. And then also, the drivers tonight don't know how that looks.
And if this motion passed, at what point would it actually be implemented?
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Buns, correct me, but I think the first Wednesday it would be for this coming week, so the 28th, so Wednesday the 30th.
When would the plan from the drivers and the food, the lunch be? I mean, we'll have to get that, the board would like to know, I'm sure, how that's gonna be handled. We'll have that by the end of the week then. I mean, that's I'm just trying to figure out how that's all gonna work.
Yeah, we would need yet this week, absolutely.
Again, if I might add, it's taking a step in the opposite direction that I've heard any public person approach me as a parent or as anyone in the public on the objective of getting these students back in class as much as possible. And I'll leave it at that. Any further discussion? I'll call one more time for discussion. All right, and to refresh the memory here, motion has been made by Rich Mueller, seconded by Ms. Joanne Maloney to approve the 2021 school year learning plan revision as presented. Ms. Latmus, I'll call upon you for roll call.
Karen Patness, 9. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rowe.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
No.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Nay. Motion does carry though, so we will revise the plan as presented. Moving on to the 2021 school year learning model update. Dr. Carlson, please.
Yes, this is an opportunity. I don't have really a lot of new data to share tonight, but I know the intent has been to provide some time tonight for the board to ask questions, talk about where we're at. We all know the current situation of our two buildings, where we're at. I'm going to make some assumptions here that, as we've communicated out the Thursday publication from the Department of Health, we are tracking those numbers. Every Thursday, though, that's about a 12-day to 14-day period. The last day of that 14-day is about 12 days old. And so, if you look at the Safe Learning Plan, once you get into the year and you start looking at moving from model to model, there's specific language that talks about, even on, I want to say pages 10 and 11, that talk about going from back and forth. And looking at different data than just solely that Thursday number, which still is one of the leading data points or indicators that you need to follow. So we're staying in touch on a regular basis with our regional support team, which, just a reminder, is the group of people who, members of that group are from not only county public health, but also state public health. And so, in fact, we have a meeting tomorrow that includes the 3 Waseca County school districts. And so, the questions that continue to be out there is, originally last week, why is our elementary still in hybrid with that, especially the 72 number? And why aren't they in distance learning? Well, we dig deeper and look at some of the data. I think it's no secret that we look at the last couple of weeks of the prison cases that have been identified as isolated there, where that's the main source. And we don't totally dismiss that in our conversations with the county public health. But those are things that we are taking a closer look at, especially when you are into the year and you're looking to move now, whether it's a hybrid to distance learning or the other way, distance learning to hybrid. So it's my feeling that we need to be looking at as much of that data as possible to best inform us of where we're headed. What we are given is a general direction from the public health folks that we need to be showing a definite trending down of 2 to 3 weeks. So what do you base that on? And right now, there's still a lot of attention given to those Thursday published numbers that are latent data. So we, even tomorrow, will continue to ask and talk about what what can we look for to establish with a high level of confidence that trending downward. So for example, it's clearly in the Safe Learning Plan that you now are at a point where after the school year started, what now has started to happen in your buildings? And so we're tracking that data daily. What do we know as far as cases, as far as positive test cases, quarantine, isolation? I do have, if they're still with us, I think Carrie and I believe Donna may even be on, and so they are on here as far as for questions that you might have. So we continue to work on this daily. We're looking for as much information other than just that Thursday lagging data to help inform us to make decisions, as has been mentioned tonight, about our desire in a safe way to bring our students back every day, ideally. And so right now it would be taking our secondary, going from distance learning to hybrid, and then at some point moving our elementary from hybrid to in-person. So this is maybe more of an opportunity for questions or comments or direction that I could take away from here tonight too. We don't have a recommended action on here unless the board has somehow develops some kind of directive or action that it wants to take, wants to vote on.
I guess can I start?
Yeah.
I guess I have a, maybe it's a question or maybe it's a comment, but what I've been spending a lot of time thinking about lately is what's the end game here? I mean, in a sporting event, the time runs out, you get pinned, hit the tennis ball out of the court, whatever. So there's an end, right? So it seems to me like when we started here, the end game, Governor Walz said, was that we needed ventilators and hospital beds, right? Wasn't that, if I recall correct, that's what we needed. Well, we got our ventilators and our hospital beds, and then it spilled into how I feel that what it is now is nobody can get COVID-19. We gotta stop, nobody can get COVID. So how long, so before, I wonder if we don't need to figure out what our end game is. Are we just gonna bounce back and forth? Is COVID, so we're gonna get some miracle vaccine? Well, people are still catching viruses. I'm not a doctor, can you wipe out a virus? Are we gonna have this forever? So are we gonna go until the holidays and say, okay, let's, or is it gonna go through the school year? At what point are we gonna dig in, or are we just gonna say this is gonna be here forever, or do we just have to stay home? So I guess I've been thinking about that a lot, and I don't have the answer, but I think if we have that in our head, at what point, where are we gonna dig in, or is this, do we just have to just stay home? I don't know, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of, I need a new phone, because I'm getting a lot of calls and text messages, and it's really just a solid, there's no deviation, everybody wants their kids in school, and nobody's deviating from that, and maybe I know there's people on the other side of the fence, but they must not have my number, because I'm not hearing from them. I've been following these zip codes. I know the numbers are probably accurate, but I don't agree with the Waseca County numbers. We should get a pretty big trophy because we're leading the state by a long shot about every week. But if you search it for zip code, we're not in the same situation as Waseca. Wherever you draw the line, you can draw a line where you want. The state's drawing a line by counties. I'd rather draw a line by zip code, then we can go back to school. So we've had 2 Thursdays ago, in our 4 main zip codes, we had 5 new cases of COVID. Now I don't know the dates, the reporting dates, that wasn't probably just that week, but that's what was reported along with our other numbers. Last Thursday, we had 6 cases of COVID. So, I don't know what our And that's total for the 4 zip codes. So I don't know, what is our population, 4,500 in our school district or something like that. So if you use that, that's a 10 or 12 per 10,000, we should be marching along everyday elementary and hybrid high school. But I realize that's a jump of 2, and that probably makes Dale about uneasy, I'm sure, but that's my piece, I guess.
I concur with that. That was well put. I mean, all the numbers and statistics and stuff and how they come in, they're reporting them late. And like you say, I don't know of anybody currently, and I've only known about a handful in the whole school district. And yeah, if it's going to be like the flu that you can get it every year, I mean, how long are we going to march on in life? I mean, and that's the whole thing too, is this ventilator and stuff that's kind of gone by the wayside. It's more of a flu vaccine, and oxygen is the worst case scenario now. But again, I'm respectful of underlying conditions and stuff, and that's where everybody's going to have a different feel for it. But the problem is the majority is, like you say, these kids need to be in school. People did have a choice. A lot of people are back in the workforce, and including our school district. And I just think it is going to happen sooner or later. You will get a COVID case in the, somebody asked a question. I seen that email that we had one in quarantine or something. But it's just for the numbers we're dealing with. I think we need to deal with our area.
It's not too far from here. I just called a friend of mine from Lake Mills this morning. He has a junior in high school that goes to school every day, athletics, extracurriculars. He did get exposed, and they sent him home for 2 weeks. Well, he sat home for 2 weeks. He never got sick. He's going back to school now. So they're dealing with it a lot different than we are 30 miles down the road. And not our fault, but I mean, it's a whole different world down there. And there's some people getting sick. But their kids are mostly in school. Albert Lee had their cases and they're closing for a week. They had 14 cases of COVID. How you're going to handle that or not, 14 cases for the size of their school, I don't know. We're going to get it.
What bothers me is I think back, and you can't look in the rearview mirrors. It's just like everything in life. But did we give up some good? Because is it going to be probably more popular? It's going to be more present during the winter probably. And now we missed the fall and stuff, and I just
well, some of the comments I've been getting from parents, parent of a young child, I believe first grade. These, and then to speak to what the teachers were saying, they're having trouble getting in contact. They're worried about it too. You can hear it.
Right.
And what his concern is his kid got 3/4 of the year of kindergarten, and now, half in person, other elementary. He's sincerely worried about the education of his kid. He's worried about him falling behind, which I think is a real possibility. That's the message I'm getting from a lot of constituents, community members.
What I'm hearing so far is certainly supports what I continue to work on trying to. As we look at our numbers within our school buildings, we're doing well. And we do look at the zip codes, as Mr. Rupp mentioned. We'd like it even more down to those communities within our school district, but if it seems like the zip codes is what we have right now. And so we feel right now that that's what the guidance allows us to do more so than ever, is to look at some of that other, what's happening right here. And so So far, things are, whether or not our data is perfect, we're doing the best we can to keep track of what we are aware of. And so I think that should continue to be something that needs to be considered as we look at closer to us as far as moving in a certain direction.
I guess the way I look at it, if we're only expecting students to come 2 days a week, I mean, to me, the sooner the better on the going back to the hybrid model in the secondary, because I do believe that we can do that safely with half of our membership coming in a day in between. It goes back to some of our advisory council conversation of a day of deep cleaning. If they're out on Wednesday, maybe that can justify my acceptance of the fact that no students are in the building on a Wednesday, and it gets that opportunity to get them back in a safe manner, which is an objective. But allowing secondary to come 2 days a week, I don't think is a dangerous position right now. Along with the elementary seeming relatively successful in maintaining the safety of the COVID spread so far. We don't want to get arrogant about it. We don't want to assume that we're going to be immune from it, but I think maybe doing that sooner than later might be an advantage.
If I may, I know that some of my messaging out was decisions to become less restrictive may not carry the same, and I want to be careful how I say this because we are all wanting to get students back as soon as we can safely. So there is an urgency there. Some might view it as, with some of the numbers in the past month, there was great urgency to move to more restrictive. I'm just wondering, as far as the process, that we've kind of established that if the board is able to come together and convene to make that decision, but if not in a timely manner, then what those resolutions have said is that the superintendent, in consultation with the board chair. So I don't, whether that's not even decided tonight, it's just maybe going forward how we continue to operate off of, because we will have to make these decisions. And we're going to want to make them sooner than later, especially the less restrictive. And so how do we, I just want to, that's a check-in with the board right now to give some direction perhaps to Mr. Schultz and myself. That might be helpful as well.
I guess I think it's, again, not to pass any of this responsibility on, but I think when we have the opportunity, as Dr. Carlson alluded to have a 7-member board, I guess if we're in agreement of a date that we can bring them back in a hybrid type, I would appreciate a motion and taking action from the entire board versus putting that decision solely on, in this setting anyway. From here on out, if it doesn't work, we've said that before, do we want to meet every Monday night and discuss this subject? Probably not. But I think in this circumstance, I could potentially see some action and some emotion and some direction here on where we feel we can go back and try this hybrid model in the secondary and see if we can follow suit with what the elementary has had as far as successfully, safely getting kids back into the building.
So if we're gonna follow the numbers, so we're actually not, we're not in we're not playing ball right now, I suppose, what's the technical term? We're a little more aggressive right now than what our county number reads, correct? Being a hybrid elementary.
For the hybrid elementary, for some, but,
But by that particular number.
yeah, by that number,
Right.
yes.
So now, so I looked it up today just to refresh my memory. So, you know, you're either completely distant, you know, is the most, you know, term is. The next one is where we are now, your hybrid elementary, distant high school. The next notch is a hybrid for both. The next notch is where we started, which is full-time elementary hybrid for high school. And then, of course, the next one is open school. So, you know, in my mind, we're maybe cheating a little, but right now we're sitting obviously hybrid elementary, distant high school. The next notch is both hybrid. Where we were trying to start at was full-time elementary hybrid high school. Just to review that's the state. The levels that Governor Walz laid out for us, the guidelines.
And that's a guideline. So
Yeah.
why can't we just set a guideline to use, like you said, these 4 zip codes that are in our, I mean, should we be using that for a guideline?
Well, see, that was kind of my point, is that if we go one notch more aggressive, we get the high schoolers back halftime. If we go 2 notches more aggressive, then you got full-time elementary. So that's, you know, but now bear in mind, this is maybe want to be sensitive to the staff and not be ripping them back and forth every week or something too. But
No, but that's personally my thing is, I'm worried what winter's gonna bring with the flu season, because they said that with the flu. I would just as soon try our best. I mean, we've got all this protocol in place and stuff, and listen, I value our zip code numbers better than I do a county number, especially when they're throwing in numbers 2 weeks later. I mean, I'm just.
Yeah, I understand, and I guess, as I leave here tonight, I will be headed, I think Carrie and Don, and all 3 of us will be part of a meeting with our regional support team, along with the other 2 school districts in West City County. And, you know, I would still have to say that I need to know where our regional support team is at before I could fully advise you, the school board, from my perspective on how to proceed. I think it's still a little bit of an unknown. Is what if a school district makes a decision that is not supported by the regional support team, Minnesota Department of Health, and so on. I don't have the answer to that.
What do they say about back to Travis's point of these 4 zip code numbers? Has that never been talked about on?
Yeah, I think there is a mix right now, Mr. Slate, on just that, and where people are approaching balancing that statewide, countywide data that comes out, and then with how we're doing right down to our zip code and in-house. And so I would anticipate even the conversation tomorrow to continue to push on providing us reasons and rationale if our numbers continue to go down or are favorable locally. Help us continue to understand when can we move in that direction. And I don't know, I'm looking, I just, right now with the regional support team, I don't feel that we have that support, but that's something that would be asked and talked about tomorrow.
But I still think, with all things considered, in the recent daily numbers have been lower. We had one over the weekend that was huge, and they corrected that supposedly that in some of that, I'm feeling that I wish the county would do a little bit better work on not putting the fear of God in everyone when we throw a 98 out there and then they come a half hour later and say, well, kind of kidding, because 94 or whatever it was, we all know the story, but our daily rates recently have been relatively small, and again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I am convinced we can safely bring secondary in 2 days a week at a half population in our school district, and I am convinced that we should do that sooner than later. Again, back to the eyes of the public, they expect us to educate their children, and they expect us to do it in this facility, and I think we should take action and try that. If we do have some cases like we say, we know that may be that we adjust as those cases dictate, but what if we're keeping kids out of the building and we can do it safely without issue, and we're ignoring it? So it's my feeling. Again, I stand my ground on getting kids back into the district as quickly and as safely as we can.
Has there been any discussion on the prison numbers with that regional support team?
Mr. Smith, again, any discussion on the prison numbers
With the regional support team?
Haven't had that opportunity. That will be certainly part of tomorrow. And I just, the timing, I wish there could have been more of the conversation prior to our meeting tonight. It just hasn't happened.
If this were any satisfaction to the situation of having this conversation tomorrow, I would be willing to offer my time with Dr. Carlson if we had a motion to bring back the secondary September 28th pending satisfactory, and I know we're not going to get approval from a county or a state person, because I've been in enough of those conversations where that term isn't used in their conversations. They won't tell you that that's the right thing to do, or they won't tell you that it's the wrong thing to do. But barring any complications or any absolutely not answers from that conversation tomorrow, I would think that we could potentially approve here tonight a motion to bring the secondary back into the hybrid model on the 28th of September.
So if that's the case, let's say if we leave the elementary alone for the time being, then when would we be able to revisit that? Is there, do we have to wait till the next monthly meeting, or can we follow numbers for a few weeks and revisit that then? Or I'm willing to come in extra. That's what's necessary.
Right.
I am too.
Right. Well,
I just,
and again, I don't mean to put this as, but I think when I evaluate the decision-making process here, again, because there are so many drastic views one way or the other, such strong views, I think the way we're successful as a district is we do this as a board support type situation. The last time going up, we decided that the number went far enough into the next category with a projection that was so drastically higher the second that we felt we had that feeling of the sport. But yeah, we can talk about that. I think that number needs to come down a little bit more before we talk about that. I mean,
but to my point there though, or maybe Dr. Carlson has an opinion, but so if we go ahead like that,
right,
and then I suppose it could be tomorrow if we wanted to, but I mean, is there? I don't. If the numbers remain favorable, I'd like to revisit it sooner than the next meeting. Do we have to pick something, or do we just play it by ear and kind of see how things go?
I would almost say just kind of watch it for the next couple weeks. Cause if we're having, as we saw this weekend, if we're having issues with those prison numbers, and they are indeed reflecting on our overall numbers, to me there's got to be some peeling out some of those numbers to get a better feel for it. I do have an email into Waseca County to see if I can get an explanation on where the previous week's numbers fell in terms of that prison number, to just kind of see how it's growing here. Just, I mean, obviously looking at what happened over the weekend, my opinion is it's going to look like it's growing like crazy. But if we can see that clearly, hey, these are pretty much all quarantined within those prison walls, you know, what is our true number here that's really affecting us?
And Mr. Smith, I know that recently, in the last week or so, those numbers are starting to be separated.
Yep.
And so, but that will be definitely part of the conversation tomorrow. I've already been asking the question of, you know, basically want to know that 90 number is going to show up in 2 weeks.
Right.
And it just continues to raise that question among our public with some still, how are they supposed to interpret that?
Right.
And we may be farther along with, in our conversations, even with our regional support team, that we are dividing that up. But it's, how do we reassure
Well, that's back to
others too?
Travis's 4-digit zip codes. I mean, we're letting these screwed up numbers, as far as I'm concerned, keep a week, and delay us in the prison numbers, and it's just caused havoc on our school system.
Carrie, do you have a few thoughts? I see your mic is on.
Yeah, I would like to caution the board, because right now, the number that we have from last week was 72, which would indicate that we should all be in distance learning. Yet we have allowed, I guess you could say, the elementary to be in hybrid. And the guidelines show that the high school should not be into hybrid until we're down into 40s. I'm sorry, the 20s.
No.
So that's a 50-point difference. And while I agree that, you know, in-person is definitely best, I think that a 50-point difference is a very hard pill to swallow. And even if we take the prison numbers out, from my understanding with the conversations we've had with public health like last week, it would not get us below 50 for that 2-week number. We also need to consider the fact that although the data we look at is for the county, how many people stay within just their own zip code? For example, this last weekend I was in Mankato, so therefore I wasn't just in my zip code. So that's why we look at things a little bit broader than just our 4 zip code area.
And we have studies out there that show that we're all staying within town all the time, and nobody else is coming in. So that's part of what we argue or share with us. So.
Well, but most of the, you know, now Elberly closed and Alden closed, right? But all these other schools are in session and they're driving around places, you know? You know, Elberly closed for a week. I bet you they'll be back open again next week. These guys are traveling. I'm traveling all over the place. I was in Fargo last week. I'm fine. If people follow the rules, wear a mask, wash your hands, don't slobber on each other, I think we can get back to school.
Well, and I come back to we're asking for 2 days a week, you know, a half population in here with some very intense cleaning. I think we kind of owe it to our students and our public to see if we can do it safely. And again, I think Dr. Carlson has at least shared this with me, that those numbers are the guidelines, but it is becoming more and more the subject of how is your school district doing, you know, specifically with the process.
And this,
having some students and staff.
this county number to me is a line in the sand. I'm gonna use the zip code number.
Well,
They can call me and ask me that, cause elderly, everybody else is open. And all of a sudden, me living in Heartland, and I'm sicker than the people in Elderly or Manchester. Well, heck, it's 3 miles away in Wells. You know, I don't feel, you know, it's, to me, it's where you wanna draw the line, and I wanna draw the line where our kids are in school.
But what I found funny, so I spent a lot of time this summer in Douglas County, and they get people until hell won't have it all summer long. And when I pulled up the weather, there was always a COVID number. Waseca County and Douglas County were always tick for tack. And then just like that, this fall, Waseca County blew by Douglas County because there for a while they were both like 10 cases total. And then once all this testing got available, it seems like things went,
And the critics will use that both ways, you know.
Yeah,
that's
and
how
I don't know,
sneaky
maybe
and how
more of us
fast it
healthy
moves,
people
but
should get tested to bring that, is it a ratio or is it the cases?
It's the new cases, the positive, so yeah.
But it
there's
just still, for how many people traveled in that area, how that stayed low all summer long and there was travel. I mean,
If, back to Travis's question of when do we revisit the elementary, and I guess this is what I would offer to every board member, is that please contact Dr. Carlson if you feel we're not moving fast enough or looking at the numbers, back to your elementary issue. I would request it, is that fair, Dr. Carlson, and if we get to that point, or you can contact myself also, we can call a special meeting when we feel that there's interest from the board to visit about the subject, that we won't keep you from that and say it's gotta be October 21st. This is an important subject and we all have the same objective, so I don't see that being a problem, if we go ahead and approve something for the secondary to come back tonight here. Again, we will leave that option open to the board to reconvene. I do think it will take some numbers decreasing on those Thursday figures before we would probably, but I think we maybe all are in agreement on that too.
Well, I'm willing to make the motion to put the high school back in hybrid learning as soon as September 20th.
September 28th is the following Monday, and again, with that, I think it might be a little bit rapid in the eyes of the administration, but the secondary and middle school are adults and they've been preparing for distance learning and they're eager to get back here, so I think families and students can adjust to that. Dr. Carlson, I'll give you an opportunity to talk about some of those challenges, but
My only question would be, I can't advise you right now tonight what the ramification would be with the state.
Right.
So I don't have that for you tonight, or if you make that
and
decision.
again, I guess
maybe I should add to that, barring any, I guess unless they somehow.
yeah, and I think we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I think we can leave that motion as it stands, and again.
You're setting a date to it though?
What is the motion?
The motion was to have the secondary come back to the hybrid model on Monday, September 28th. Travis Ralph made the motion, there is not a second to that motion yet, but I would call for one at this time.
This is pending on.
I'll second that motion.
Correct.
Pending on what Dr.
Right,
Carlson would
yeah.
find out with the support team.
Right, if the county and the state say no to this, we're back at the drawing table and we can't do things that the state tells us we can't do, but I don't suspect that but there is that potential.
Well, according to the safe learning plan, isn't there a way to get around some of
Well, and it's back to my point in those conversations that I've been involved or sat in with, I haven't heard, they're not yes/no answers to those subjects. They're guiding and they're visiting through those subjects, but I don't believe, and again, maybe Dr. Carlson can correct me on that.
So do I have the motion, so bring back secondary school to hybrid starting September 8th, contingent upon regional support team support? Or did I go too far with that?
I don't think it needs to be support, I think it needs to be unless they tell us we can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that, I don't wanna talk
I've got enough friends.
out of turn, but
Yeah, one thing I'd like to see explored with that regional support team is there, when they talk about community spread, I'd like them to focus on what community it's spreading in, because it, you know, I feel like I've been misled. They've misled us and they made it sound like it was wider. It seems to be centered in Waseca, not throughout the county. And I'd like them to focus on that.
Joanne, a couple of weeks, can you hear me? Joanne?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a person from the Department of Health, and at that time, she was of the opinion that the Waseca County number, everybody should go by the Waseca County numbers, and I particularly don't agree with that. I mean, I know we're all traveling around, but everybody's traveling. I feel like she didn't see it that way, I can tell you that. She thought we should just use the whole county as one block group and call it good.
you have a pretty good argument that the prisoners shouldn't be traveling around.
Nobody's more quarantined.
Right.
Well, that's why do they even use them?
You than we
Well-
would, but I think it's important to get her to try to focus on where in the county those cases are, northern part of the county versus the southern part of the county. I think the cases are significantly in Waseca and then also a chunk in Janesville. And not that we're like, you know, totally healthy without any issues down here. But thus far we've done well. And the elementary continues to do well.
And I believe it was said at some point too that they're on that graph that they had sent out a week or two ago that showed the breakdown of the community spread, continued care, whatever. I think it was brought up that the community spread also included don't know. So they don't know where they may have contracted, so they're just lumping it under community spread. Well, there again, you could get it from anywhere and not know.
Either it had the slice of don't know or it was in the community spread. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Like I say, I just feel we lost a month because of bull crap numbers.
Right.
In my opinion.
But we haven't lost a month. School's only been in session 2 weeks, let's not exaggerate.
Everything, I exaggerate everything.
So the motion is, Mr. Roth made a motion to bring secondary back to the hybrid model on Monday, September 28th. That was seconded by Mr. Mueller. And I'll call one more time for any more discussion on that. I will state in that motion, this is subject to county or state officials telling us that we can't, if that's unacceptable to everyone here this evening. So I'll call for discussion one last time before Ms. Flatness does roll call. Any further discussion on this subject? Ms.
Karen
Flatness, please.
Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney,
Aye.
Rich Mueller,
Aye.
Travis Rauch,
Aye.
Neil Schleich,
Aye.
Dan Schmidt,
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. Motion carries. The secondary will be coming back barring any issues from the county or the state on Monday, September 28th.
So I bring up one question then after that. What are we gonna do on the elementary then if that, are we gonna look at that in a week or so? I mean,
Well, like we said, we would hope to see some numbers come down because we need them to head in the right direction. But again, either when you start feeling that it's getting to be time on that subject,
Yeah.
to contact myself or Dr. Carlson on putting together a special meeting for that, or again, back to the superintendent and board chair making that call is a potential too. But under these circumstances, I would appreciate unity in the board when we
No,
make these decisions,
no.
and so
I-
keep an open line of
Kinda wish we
communication
would've
with
had this
Dr.
discussion
Carlson.
first.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but I wasn't there.
Because I do know them elementary teachers are going through, I mean,
Absolutely.
everybody is. I mean, the amount of,
It's a very challenging time, so.
as well as we are.
Right,
It's
exactly.
miserable.
All right, I think that concludes the business of this evening, so the only thing left would be adjourned.
Seconded.
Motion made by Mr. Rao, seconded by Mr. Schleich to adjourn. Ms. Flatness, please.
Karen Flatness, aye. Joanne Maloney.
Aye.
Rich Mueller.
Aye.
Travis Rao.
Aye.
Neil Schleich.
Aye.
Dan Schmidt.
Aye.
Rick Schultz.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good discussion this evening.
So now that
Oh,
providing.
do you want to do it now